You've been there, right? An hour deep in online reviews for, I don't know, a $10 phone charger, and you're somehow more confused than when you started. That feeling of being totally and completely stuck, overwhelmed by this quest to find the perfect choice until, well, you just make no choice at all? That is analysis paralysis. And listen, it's not just a bad habit, it's a fundamental glitch in how your brain is wired. In this explainer, we're going to pop the hood, look at the source code of that glitch, figure out why it's happening, and most importantly, give you the tools to reboot your decision-making process for good. Now, this quote, it kind of goes against everything we've ever been taught, doesn't it? I mean, we're told to think harder, gather more data, weigh every single pro and con. That's supposed to be the gold standard for making smart choices. But what if that very process, what if that's what's actually sabotaging you? This idea is the big paradox we're diving into today. Sometimes the harder you try to think, the worse your decisions get. Let's find out why. So here's our roadmap. First up, we're going to unpack the calculator paradox to really understand the two competing systems in your head. Then we'll walk right into the optimization trap of modern life that just fuels all this paralysis. We'll map out the predictable recursive loop that keeps you stuck and expose the illusion of control that's hiding behind it. But hey, we're not going to leave you stuck there. We'll arm you with the Satisficers toolkit, real practical strategies, and we'll wrap up by showing you how to finally trust the most powerful tool you've got, your own internal supercomputer. Okay, let's start with the single most important idea to get your head around all this overthinking stuff. I want you to imagine you own the most powerful supercomputer on the planet. I mean, this thing can process billions of data points in a split second. It sees patterns, it predicts outcomes, it learns from a lifetime of your experiences. Now, imagine trying to operate that entire supercomputer using nothing but a tiny 4-function pocket calculator from, like, the 1980s. Sounds ridiculous, right? But that's pretty much what's happening inside your head every single time you get stuck. Just think back to the last time you bought something small. A new brand of coffee, maybe a blender. You hop online for a quick check, and next thing you know, an hour has vanished. You're buried in spreadsheets of specs you don't understand, endless reviews, contradictory YouTube videos, and you're more stressed out, more tired, and less sure than when you started. You have just experienced the pocket calculator trying and failing to do the supercomputer's job. This happens because we've got this mistaken belief that every single decision needs to be crunched, number by number, by that calculator. But for complex world, it's just the wrong tool for the job.
So this is that internal conflict, laid out right here. On the left, you've got your intuition. That's the supercomputer. It's the ancient, powerful part of your brain that handles pretty much everything you do automatically. Driving a familiar road, catching a ball, reading a vibe in a room. It's incredibly fast, and it's processing massive amounts of data from your environment without you even knowing it. Then on the right, you've got your conscious mind, the calculator. This is the newer part of your brain that does step-by-step logic. It's deliberate, sure, but it is painfully slow, and it has a teeny tiny working memory. The whole problem starts when we hand a huge, complex, messy problem like, what career should I choose? Or is this the right person for me? To that little pocket calculator. It was never built for that. So what does it do? It freezes up and crashes.
Okay, so if we have this incredible supercomputer, why do we keep trying to use the clunky calculator? Well, a huge piece of the puzzle is the world we're living in right now. We are caught in what's called the optimization trap. It's this modern cultural pressure that whispers in our ear that every single choice, from your job to your lunch, has to be the absolute number one, mathematically best possible one. And this constant pursuit of perfection, it creates the perfect breeding ground for analysis paralysis. And the trap is baited with this: choice overload. You know what I'm talking about. Whether you're scrolling Netflix for what feels like an eternity, swiping on a dating app, or just standing in the cereal aisles staring at a wall of boxes, you're facing a paralyzing number of options. Our brains just weren't built for this level of abundance. We think more options mean more freedom, but psychologically, it's really just more noise. Every extra option is another variable our poor little calculator has to try and compute, and it gets overwhelmed fast. And this overload isn't just a vague feeling, it's a biological fact. Every single decision you weigh, every pro-con list you make, it literally burns a finite and precious resource, glucose, which is your brain's fuel. The scientific term for this is ego depletion. So when you spend an hour comparing 50 different kinds of olive oil, you are literally draining the mental battery you need for the important stuff, like being patient with your family or having a creative idea at work. You end up mentally exhausted before you've even made a choice, which basically guarantees you'll feel regret no matter what you pick. So this pressure to optimize everything, It splits people into two basic camps. On the left, you've got the maximizer. This is the person stuck in that optimization trap. They are obsessed with finding the single best option and will burn all their time and energy searching for it, constantly wondering if something even better is out there. And the real tragedy here is that all the research shows they consistently feel more regret and way less satisfaction with what they choose. But there is another way. So meet our hero on the right, the satisficer. The word's a combo of satisfy and suffice. A satisficer doesn't settle for bad. They just define what good enough looks like, find the first thing that meets those criteria, and then they confidently move on. They work less, they feel less stress, and, you guessed it, they're ultimately happier with their outcomes. Our goal today is to learn how to be a bit more like the satisficer. Okay, so we get the context, we know who the players are. Now, let's zoom in on the actual mechanism of the glitch itself. See, overthinking isn't just some vague fog of confusion. It is a predictable 4-step feedback loop that your brain gets stuck running on repeat. And once you can actually see the steps in the machine, you can finally figure out how to break the cycle.
This is the exact loop that traps us. It all starts with step 1, the perfectionist trigger. This is when you take a normal decision, like what to major in or where to live, and you label it as identity defining. The stakes get so high that no choice could ever possibly live up to them. And that leads directly to step 2, the calculator bottleneck. Your conscious mind, that little calculator, tries to juggle all the variables: cost, career, social life, what your parents will think, and it just freezes. It can't compute. From there, we slide into step 3, internal noise. You start overanalyzing your own feelings. Why am I so anxious about this? Does that mean it's the wrong choice? And all that internal chatter just drowns out your actual gut feeling. And finally, you slam into step 4, anticipatory regret. You've thought about so many amazing possibilities that you start to mourn the ones you won't pick before you've even chosen one. You're basically creating a self-fulfilling prophecy of dissatisfaction.
So when I say that internal noise drowns out your intuition, what are we really talking about? We're talking about these somatic markers. These are the gut feelings. It's your body's way of talking to your brain. That subtle tightness in your chest when you think about one job offer, or that feeling of lightness and expansion when you consider another. That's not random. That is your supercomputer running a massive, complex calculation based on your entire life's experience and giving you the final answer as a physical feeling. Overthinking is basically the process of talking yourself out of listening to that incredibly valuable signal. So this brings up a really important question. If this whole loop is so painful and just doesn't work, why do our brains cling to it? If we have this built-in guidance system, why do we actively choose to ignore it and just get stuck instead? Well, the answer is that overthinking serves a powerful, hidden psychological purpose. It's a defense mechanism. Here's the key insight. Your brain isn't actually trying to find the right answer. It's trying to avoid the feeling of being wrong. See, as long as you're thinking, researching, making lists, deliberating, you're safe inside this little bubble of theory. But the moment you act, the moment you make a choice, you're vulnerable. You could fail. You could be judged. You could make a mistake. Overthinking, then, is an illusion of control. It feels super productive, but what it really is a sophisticated form of procrastination designed to shield you from the unavoidable rest that comes with taking action. In this slide, this shows that neurological battle playing out. On one side, you've got the guard, our little calculator. Its main job is to keep you safe from risk. It has a limited memory, it thinks in straight lines, and it absolutely hates uncertainty. It wants predictable, guaranteed outcomes. And on the other side, you've got the master, our supercomputer. It holds this vast, unconscious database of your entire life, and it recognizes subtle patterns your conscious mind would never see. It is the source of your gut feelings. When you overthink, the cautious guard basically locks the door and refuses to listen to the wise master, totally convinced it can solve the problem all by itself, if it just thinks a little bit harder. All right, enough about the problem, let's get practical. How do we actually bypass that overprotective guard and get access to the wisdom of the master? We do it by shifting away from endless step-by-step analysis and instead start using clever mental shortcuts or heuristics. This is the Satisfier's Toolkit. Here are 4 really powerful heuristics you can start using today. First, you have to consciously adopt the satisficing mindset. That means giving yourself permission to aim for good enough instead of some imaginary best. Second, for all those small, low-stakes decisions, use the 60-second constraint. Give yourself 1 minute. That's it. This forces the anxious guard to get out of the way and let the fast, intuitive master just pick one. Third, for trivial choices like which toothpaste to buy, use the rule of 3. If you see 3 good enough options, just grab one. Move on. This saves your brain power for what actually matters. And finally, for the really big stuff, we use a technique called the NAP rule. Now, this is really cool. This technique is backed by something called unconscious thought theory. There's this fascinating research that shows for complex decisions with a ton of variables, our brains actually make better choices when we stop consciously focusing on them. So for that big career move or that huge life decision, do your research, gather the information, feed all that data to your supercomputer. Then, and this is the most important part, you walk away. Go for a run, take a nap, work on something else entirely. This lets your massive subconscious process all that information in the background, totally free from the interference of your anxious conscious mind. And the right answer? It'll often just pop into your head as a clear gut feeling when you least expect it.
Now, the rule of 3 and that 60-second constraint, they're all about one thing: preserving your mental energy. I want you to think of your ability to make decisions like a bank account. Every morning, it's filled with decision capital, and every single choice you make, no matter how tiny, is a withdrawal. So if you spend all morning agonizing over which brand of coffee to buy, you're going to have no capital left in the bank when a truly important decision lands on your desk that afternoon. You have to stop bankrupting your best brain power on choices that just don't matter.
And this brings us to the final, and honestly, the most profound shift that we need to make. We've looked at the neurology, the psychology, the practical tools, but all of it comes down to a fundamental change in where you place your trust, in the calculator or in the supercomputer.
Just let that one sink in for a second. For years, you've probably believed that your logical, conscious mind is the hero of your story, right? The rational captain charting the best course. But in the world of complex human decisions, it's often the villain. It's that scared guard that locks you in a prison made of your own thoughts. The process of overthinking isn't some journey toward clarity. It's a detour that takes you further and further away from the intuitive truth your supercomputer probably knew from the very beginning.
And this is the question I really want to leave you with. We spend so much time and energy trying to improve our analytical skills, to get a better, faster calculator. We read more books, we make more lists, we gather more data. But what if that whole project is just flawed from the start? What if the real work isn't about upgrading your conscious logic, but about learning how to quiet it down long enough to hear the whisper of the vastly more powerful, more experienced machine you were born with? Because at the end of the day, a great decision isn't a perfect one. Perfection is a myth. It lives only in the spreadsheets of the maximizer. A truly great decision is one that feels right in your gut. It's one that lets you move forward with energy and commitment, and it's one that you can live with peacefully, long after the choice is made. And finding that, well, that doesn't require more thinking. It requires more trust.